take off the beard, take off the beard. I said, I can't do it, Grandma.
We did come from a very wealthy family.
Yeah.
You found yourself homeless.
I used to really hate Muslims. I used to hate Arabs in particular. I thought they were crazy. I was wrong.
Atheism to Judaism to Islam. And
Yeah.
that's a seismic shift in your life.
When I was 16, somebody asked me the question, why are we here? Why are we alive? When I converted to Islam, lost most of my friends because we didn't want to do the same things anymore. And then at 18 years old, everything changed and I found myself in a world that I never imagined I'd be in. So you're no longer living in this house. You're separated from your family. You're not going to see your kids again. That's it.
How much difficulty have you been through in your life?
When I buried my daughter, I was so fortunate that I was so comforted by my faith. And I'm going to see her again. I thought it was going to be my last day on the job. I don't think I slept much that night. Give value and make people feel valued.
Do you think the world is getting less tolerant or more tolerant? What is that one insight that you think you'd really like to share with everybody?
Only one. Only one.
Today's guest is Abdurahman Afia. Abdurahman is a leadership advisor, executive coach, social media influencer, and author of the book, The Unlikely Leader. Abdurahman has one of those life stories that just has to be heard to be believed. Stories that are just full of contradictions. From having a really privileged background to becoming homeless. From being a child protege to failing school. From Judaism to Islam. From failing as a leader to then teaching other leaders. And from being an introvert to having millions of followers online. Today, we talk openly about leadership, about changing faiths, about fighting prejudice, about personal branding, and the incredible human potential that we all have, for those of us still willing to develop it. Let's get into it.
Abdurahman came from wealth, privilege, and a powerful family name. Yet at 18, he found himself homeless. A genius as a child, but completely lost as a young man searching for meaning. One question changed his life forever. Why are we here? Faith cost him everything before it gave him purpose. Today, Abdurahman teaches the world how struggle can become strength.
Abdurahman, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Lucas. Happy to be here.
Mate, it's a pleasure to have you.
Good. I'm glad.
I was saying off camera, you have a strong look.
I mean, it's been cultivated over many years. You know, I've weathered many a storm to get where I am today, man. I wasn't always like this. But, I'm happy with where I am.
You're very striking to look at.
Yeah, I think I've been told that a few times. And much to my my late grandmother's displeasure. I remember every time I see my grandma Edna, she'd always say to me, please just take off the beard, take off the beard. I said, I can't do it, Grandma.
So how many years have you had that?
Well, our relationship started when I was about 18 and a half. 18 and a half, I think I started to grow my beard for the first time. Yeah. I never looked back.
Okay. Was it to try and buy alcohol at the time or was that different times, I'm guessing? I used to try and do that when I was in the UK, yeah. I had a little bit of a wispy little thing here. When I was 16, I'm like, how old are you? I'm 18, I'm 18. You have a beard brush.
I do have a beard brush.
How many times do you brush that bad boy?
I have several beard brushes, by the way. So
you have several.
Yeah, I'm not being played as the one beard brush guy. No, I have several beard brushes.
They
come in different sizes, different forms. When you have a beard, I always remember reading a book by Roald Dahl, The Twits.
Great book.
Brilliant. But I always remember how disgusting their beards were. You know, they used to get food in it, and they'd be slurping their soup, and it would pour into their beard. And I just knew that when I had a beard, I had to take care of it. Yeah. And my beard comes because, you know, it's connected with my faith as well. And one of the principles of having a beard in the faith is that you are meant to groom it and take care of it. You should never look disheveled. I've always got to make sure that it's on point.
Man, there's a lot I want to talk to you about today, but just on the point of the twits, because you brought up, I don't read many books very often. That was one of the books I did actually read when I was a kid. And I remember they said in the book, like when you'd get hungry, right? You just just look around, see what you can muster up.
That's right.
You never had food stuck in that beard?
No, I've never had food stuck in that beard. But
Abdurahman, you've never had food stuck in that beard. After 30 plus years of having that, you've never had food stuck in that beard.
Depends how you define stuck. Sometimes it just might be there and you're saving it for later, Lucas, you know, at the end of the day. But no, I think I'm pretty confident in saying that, man.
I'm not asking if you've got like a chicken.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull out a shawarma if that's what you're wondering, man.
So I have to ask you about your mug because that's the tradition of the show.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit about this mug.
Well, I have a lot of mugs, and I'm a big coffee man. I love drinking coffee, so I've got a lot of mugs, and I was looking at all of them on the shelf, but there's one that just means more to me than any other mug. It's chipped. This is Granddad's brew. So I am a grandfather, and
congratulations.
Thank you. I have 3 incredible grandchildren.
Do you really?
Yeah, 3 incredible grandchildren. They are the directors of happiness for our company. And there were times in my life where I didn't know if I'd ever live to have my own children, let alone grandchildren. So I think one of the most incredible parts of my life is being a grandfather, having grandchildren, having them say to me, "Grandpa," and thinking, "Oh my God, that's me." So that's why Granddad's brew.
It's very nice. I can see it's chipped. What
it's
happened?
Chipped.
Did one of your grandkids throw at you?
No, my wife will kill me. It's definitely my wife. Whenever there's actually, wait, it could have been Abdurahman. Was it you?
By the way, for those who don't know, his son is also called Abdurahman. He's behind watching.
Did you chip this one?
He's saying no. He's saying no.
It's either him or my wife. My wife's a habitual mug chipper.
Do you let people drink out of your mug?
I don't care, man. Anybody can drink out of it. Not a problem. Mugs are there to be shared.
Look, you've got to do a lot to get yourself on the mantelpiece.
Oh,
yeah. But I'm really looking forward to having a conversation.
Yeah, all right. Let's see.
We obviously talked online, and you've got a very interesting story. The thing is with a story, it's like there's always a start, there's always a middle, and there's not really an end because obviously we're still here. And I don't want to start right at the very beginning. But what I will say to you is that your life seems to be full of contradictions.
Okay.
Let me tell you what I mean by
tell me
that.
what you mean.
So you come from we did come from a very wealthy family.
Yeah.
Yet you found yourself homeless
Yes.
at one point, right? You used to be an atheist, then you became a huge believer in Islam.
Yes.
Okay. A couple of contradictions there.
I see it there.
Yeah, you can
see where you're going with
There's
this.
one more that's still coming. There's one more still coming.
All right.
You sucked at leadership when you were actually in a leadership position, yet you teach leadership now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, very fair.
So how is your life, whether you've deliberately or not, there seems to be one extreme to another. And you're a British guy, right? You look British to me.
Okay.
You have obviously, I know you have German roots and Spanish roots.
Yeah.
But you also look like a contradiction in many ways. Again, I have an elephant in the room behind me. People from the UK don't look like this typically, right?
Yeah.
Look, I'm an open man, I'm open-minded, and I understand, and I have lots of friends who are in the UK who are Muslim.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it's not very common.
No.
So how do you feel if someone describes your life as lots of different contradictions throughout?
I think that I'm not sure that I would use the word contradiction, but I completely understand why you're using it. But certainly I think you've hit the nail on the head that so much of my life has been going from here over to here.
Extremes,
for example, when I came to Dubai, I was extremely out of shape. I was 135 kgs.
Look at you now.
But I was incredibly out of shape. I was 60% body fat. I was a really, really bad shape. I let myself go, focusing only on the business before that. I was huge. And now today, I'm in better condition. You're
unbelievable. You're 52 years of age. You look unbelievable.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I worked hard to make that happen. I think that I really love being able to say at 52, time really flew by, but I know where all that time went. I used to hear people say that. I used to hear people say when they got to my age, they'd say, "Oh, where did all the time go? Time just flew. Time did fly." But I know where that time went. There's not a part of my life that I think to myself, "Oh my God, where did the years go?" I know where the years went. They went. There was struggle. There was joy. There was pain. That's life. I don't think that I'm that different to anybody else. Life is a constant up and down. It's a roller coaster. And
you filled it.
Well,
you've had a full life so far.
I'm living it, and there's no finish line to this. As long as there's a heart that breathes and there's a soul inside, there's no finish line to this. I love telling myself that I want to leave something behind, right? I want to be an example. I want to leave something behind. I want my children to talk about me after I've gone. I want my great grandchildren to be talking about me after I've gone, so that I can be an example for them, an inspiration for people. That's important to me, and kind of runs through pretty much all that I do, And
I can tell you're doing a good job because I can see how your son looks at you.
Oh yeah? He's probably on his phone now. He's on Snapchat now. He's like, "What the hell am I doing?"
There's respect there. I tell you, there's a lot of respect there. And to raise men in a family, it's not easy, especially in this day and age.
No, it hasn't. It wasn't easy, but you're doing it. I saw you got some incredibly handsome, beautiful sons. I can't believe that they really, I thought they were much older than they were. You know, the way they walked into the house with confidence.
We feed them lots of stuff.
I used to say, we're raising lions, not lambs. And that's how I always wanted to raise my sons to be, you know, respectable young men who are a good example of the values that they hold. And each one of them is an individual. And we're very, very close, but we're also quite close in age because I had them when I was so young.
You were a kid when you got married.
I didn't know what I was doing when I got married.
You were a kid. Well, you were like 20, 21?
No, I wish. I was 19.
You were 19, yeah.
I was 19 when I got married. I can't believe that my wife, even until today, I can't believe that she wanted to marry me. I mean, I had nothing. She had everything. And
she's from Ghana, right? Your wife?
Originally, she's from Ghana.
Yeah.
We're opposite in so many ways. She's analytical, sensible, you know, very, very precise in everything she does. Whereas I'm kind of like, you know, let's just do this or do wild things. And, you know, it's worked. I mean, 32 years down the line, you know, she's the love of my life. And yeah, I'm obsessed with her.
That's beautiful to say. It's not easy, right? Marriage is not easy. What would be some of the advice that you'd give your kids when they finally, if they haven't all got married yet, what would you kind of give them advice to?
I can only go based on my experience, and it might be right, it might be wrong, but I can tell you that any marriage, you're going to have the highest of highs, and you're probably going to have the lowest of lows. There's going to be times when you just look at the person and you think, oh, I'm so blessed, so blessed to be with this person. There's other times when you think, oh my God, save me from this person. You know, that's marriage, man. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. The highs are so high and the lows, they'll be really low. But even when they're really low, know that things are, with time, more often than not always, they can work themselves out.
Remind me, how many kids do you have?
I have 5 children. Whenever anyone asks me this, I always say I have 5 children. One of my daughters passed away. I always say, may God have mercy on her. She passed away, but my faith tells me that she's still alive and will be reunited in paradise one day. So I have 4 that are with me in this life at the moment. Yeah.
And they're all begin with A, is that right?
Yeah. So when I was younger,
you're starting the alphabet. Like, you know, how many kids were you planning on having? They would start with A's and B's and C's, huh?
Well, you know, when I was young, they diagnosed me with a few things. One of the things they diagnosed me with was dyspraxia. So dyspraxia, you have a lot of difficulty with coordination, putting things in alphabetical order. So I was like, let's keep it simple. We'll just, you know, all A's.
Yeah. Well, that was the other contradiction I had in mind. Okay. Was your school, because you were classified as a child genius, basically.
Allegedly.
But you failed school.
Yeah.
See, that's another one.
Yeah.
Right? So I was looking through your story. I'm like, it's like it's gone like it's this, but it's actually this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
but I like that, and I feel fortunate, and I would like that to be an example for other people, that it really doesn't matter where you are. Like you said, I was okay. So they sent me to Mensa. Mensa's a bit controversial. They essentially assess your level of IQ, so you know your level of intelligence. And they came back and they told my parents, your son's a genius. We tested at genius level, and you got kids. You know, I got kids. If a place like Mensa is telling you your kid's a genius, you're like, yes, I'm set. Early retirement, it's all good. But as you know, I then went on to fail every exam, and I got kicked out of every school I went to, including that school that had no school rules. They also kicked me out. I was out of control, wild child. Didn't care about education at all. And yet later in life, found my way working as an academic in universities. And
We'll come to that.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, usually I ask my guests for a safe word in case they don't want to answer a certain question.
Right.
Anything come to mind?
Connoisseur.
Okay. Why connoisseur?
No idea.
Are you a connoisseur of something?
Well, actually, my first Instagram account ever was the Shawarma Connoisseur.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've forgotten all about it. It's just I hadn't even thought about the safe word. I thought to myself, when I was driving here, I was like, what's safe word? And I was like, I don't need a safe word. But then seeing as you put me on the spot there, connoisseur came into my mind. It's a word that I don't use. So if you hear me scream connoisseur,
I'll know why.
Yeah.
Let's talk about shawarma.
Okay.
Because I know you're a big fan of it. You went viral because of it in many instances.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was completely non-planned, off the cuff. You're just enjoying a nice sandwich.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you said it in Arabic and it just sort of took off from there.
Yeah, that's right.
So can you say it one more time? Can you look into that camera and say it?
You want to look into this camera and say what I said that day?
Please.
So the line that got me millions of views, you might want to try it, you might also get millions of views, was this. Ahibbu hada shawarma ni'ma min Allah, which means, I love this shawarma. this shawarma is a blessing from God.
I love it.
And I said that one day during COVID, during lockdown, when I was living in Saudi Arabia, because I did love it. I took a bite of this shawarma. Like my love affair with shawarma, I've mentioned only once before, started back in 1999 in Jeddah. That's the first time me and a shawarma met. And
was it love at first sight?
It was love at first bite.
Was your wife upset about it, or was she?
She was not with me at the time. I was in Saudi Arabia.
She was cheating on your
first
wife
job. Well, the truth is, I actually took 4 of them home. Actually, no, I'm lying. I took 8 because there were 4 chicken and 4 beef. That was the first time. I swear to God, that was the first time I ever had shawarma.
Yeah,
and I couldn't believe what I was tasting. I'm absolutely deadly serious. I was one of the most miserable points in my life. I just got a job in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. I'd left my wife and children to take this job. I was on my probation period. It was going really badly. And I was really homesick. I really missed my wife. I really missed the kids. And I remember I couldn't afford to use the phone. You had to go to a phone cabin in those days to phone internationally, to call international calls. And I remember going to this place, using all my money. I had no money left except I kept some for food, going back to the hotel and realizing that I could call them from the hotel, not knowing that the hotel charges for calls were like triple the price of a normal call. Got into huge debt because of calling home. I was so homesick. And the food was it was rubbish, the food that I was eating. So one day I said to the hotel manager, where can I get some good food? And he just put me in a taxi. I didn't know where I was going. I went into a restaurant. I didn't understand what the guy was saying to me. He was speaking to me in Arabic. I didn't know Arabic. And he was just pointing. I just said, yeah, okay. And I was left with a bag. And this bag had 4 chicken shawarma and 4 beef shawarma. I went back to the hotel and I ate them. I couldn't believe it. I went to sleep and got up about 2 a.m. and finished another 4. So I had 4 and 4. That's when it started. I never looked back. Yeah. It was a bit of an obsession, to be honest with you. Yeah. I could talk about shawarma all day. Like, it could get really weird, man.
I can see that. But things changed for you after that video.
Things changed. Things changed. I mean, I had been on social media before then talking about leadership. I'd been on social media talking about my faith, about positivity and all that good stuff. And nobody cared. But that one day when I took a bite into the shawarma, I was filled with joy. I was like, life's really rough right now. We're all in lockdown. Nobody can go outside. I can't see my friends. It's pretty bad. But this shawarma, man, this shawarma is so good. I've got to let the world know. And that's when I was, all right. Yeah. And I said it and went to sleep. It was 100% from the heart. Yeah. Went to sleep, woke up, over 1 million views. Oh, that's nice. Reading all the comments. Then little children started mimicking my voice and thousands of children were making videos imitating what I had done. What I didn't know is I apparently misgendered the shawarma, which I think kind of that authenticity and genuine joy. I think people were drawn towards that. And the fact that I didn't really care, because you get a bunch of hate comments as well. Every time you get
haters are going to hate.
Absolutely. But they're your marketing team, so it doesn't matter. When I saw the hate comments, I don't give a monkey's. So I just did it the next day and did it the next day and then did it with other types of food. And that kind of, that was the start of me getting insane views on social media.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about leadership and around that. But before we do, just going back to when you said you were kicked out of school, you were doing some pretty bad stuff back then. And you went from sort of one extreme to your use of the word. You went from one extreme to another. Okay. Do you want to talk about why you were kicked out of school?
It was pretty basic stuff. I was always the class clown. So I couldn't keep up academically.
Yeah.
I had dyspraxia, ADD. I couldn't keep up at all. And so what was I going to do? I just acted the fool. You know, I did everything I could to make friends. I would take money from my dad's wallet each morning and go to the sweet shop and buy 500. I remember buying these boxes of 500 cola bottles and then taking them in and giving them to the kids. That wasn't getting me friends. I just didn't want to be seen as, I guess, as a failure. I couldn't succeed academically. So then I remember taking money from my dad, 50-pound notes, and going and giving it out to people.
Wow.
And
I bet he loved that, your dad.
The school called him, right? The school called my dad. They said, look, we need to speak to you. My dad only told me this about 10 years ago. He said, we need to tell you that your son's been giving out money to people. And when we've asked him, where did he get the money from? He told us that you've got a machine at home that makes it. And, he wasn't too happy about that because he didn't have a machine at home that made money. He was working hard for his money, obviously. So I would just play the fool. I'd fight with the kids.
But you do that, but a few years later, you end up being homeless. That was sort of the beginning of a very dangerous kind of starting, right? Because
yeah, but the funny thing is though that when I found myself homeless, it wasn't for being naughty. It was actually for stopping. I wanted to stop that life. I was very heavily into the rave scene, the dance hall, dance music scene, clubbing, all that type of crazy stuff. I was really deep in things that I shouldn't really have been doing. And
I can assume what that was.
Yeah, so if you can think of it, I was probably doing it up until I was about 16 years old, and then I changed my way of thinking. I became a bit more sensible, and by the time I was 18, I wanted to be completely different from the way I used to be. I wanted to be a good person. I didn't want to play the fool anymore.
Yeah,
but
and your whole life changed.
Yeah,
and that's when religion sort of came into it.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the turning point for me. It was when I was 16, and somebody asked me the question, why are we here? Why are we alive? And it was one of the first times in my life that I didn't have an answer. Like, I was one of those people, I'd have an answer for everything. I just make stuff up. I would never want to be seen as somebody who didn't know something or didn't have an answer. I was just a big mouth,
You're a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah, but I was a very crazy, wild 16-year-old boy. And I didn't like not having an answer for something. And when he asked me that, why are we alive? I wanted to find out. Was there an answer?
So, look, elephant in the room, right? There's one over here. So, you used to be an atheist.
Okay, correct.
And then your parents, you left Judaism to convert to Islam.
Right.
So, from atheism to Judaism to Islam, that's a seismic shift in your life.
Yeah.
How was that for someone so young going through that, and the people around you seeing you do that? I mean, there must have been some really strong opinions at the time.
So when I converted to Islam, I lost most of my friends because we didn't want to do the same things anymore. They wanted to go clubbing. I didn't want to go clubbing. They wanted to do some crazy stuff. I didn't want to do crazy stuff anymore. My mother was probably the most concerned person. She said she couldn't understand what had happened. I didn't tell them that I converted to Islam for about 6 months. So in that 6-month window, she was very concerned. She didn't know what was happening to me. She thought that I was, she really didn't know what was happening. I think there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of fear. Even when they knew that I'd become a Muslim, what did that mean? We're going to lose our son. Our son's going to become an extremist. Our son's going to become a lunatic. What's going to happen to him? So I totally understand their reaction, and my reaction. I was also scared because I didn't quite know what was happening. All I knew was that I developed this unwavering belief that there is a higher power. There is something that created me. That something that created me sent messengers, and those messengers were the prophets that came from Moses and Abraham and Jesus and all of them. Muhammad, the final one, peace and blessings be upon him. I believe that these messengers came with a message which was for the best way for us to live. I had this complete conviction, but I couldn't really explain it to people. So there was a lot of difficulty.
It must have been an incredibly difficult time for you.
Yeah, I think it was I know that it was difficult for me, but I also know it was very difficult for my parents as well, and for my sister, because they're watching it happen in front of their eyes, and it's the fear of the unknown. I mean, when you don't know something, but all you see are images on television. I remember the images that I used to see on television, specifically of Muslims, were these people are lunatics, I used to think, because all I would ever see is terrorism and people screaming and shouting. I had no idea what they actually believed. All I thought was, these people are nuts. And then my parents and my sister are having to watch their son say, I'm now one of those people. But actually, I wasn't the people they were seeing on television. I was still me. I was still the same person. But I had perhaps a new set of values.
Looking back, is there something that you would have done differently?
There's a lot that I would have done differently. I would have done only knowing what I know now, I would have done everything differently. I would have communicated differently. I would have explained things differently. I would have handled so many things differently. But that's only looking back. I mean, I'm 52 years old now. I'm not the person that I was in the past. I'd flip like a pancake over just about anything.
Yeah. And has all of that played a role in how you raise your own kids?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about that before. I want to answer that honestly, not just the first thing that comes into my mind. It's a really, really good question. I think that everything that I went through has helped me in the way that I raised my own children. But I promise you, I'm still constantly, every day questioning how I'm raising my children. And I've raised my children. I mean, my eldest is 32 years old. My youngest is 25 years old. You could say I've raised them, but job's done. But it's not. I'm constantly thinking about how I can help them, how I make sure I do help and don't hurt them. What can I say to them that would be of value to them, accepting that I can't control them, but maybe I can influence them, wanting to make sure that when when I'm not here, my words might still be in their psyche, and accepting also a lot of what I say, complete rubbish. I think that what I'm saying is right, but I'm just a human being. And I think that especially as your children get older, one of the things that I've had to accept is your children are right a lot of the time and you're wrong.
Annoyingly, right?
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, it really is tough because you just spent so much of your life being the one who's right. I mean, when your children are younger, 9 times out of 10, you are right. They're wrong. They don't know what they're doing. All of a sudden, they're adults, they're grown-ups, and you're still thinking, look at them, bless them. They don't really.
You keep them in that box, right?
Yeah.
They're in that box as a kid, and it's difficult for them to get out of it.
It's tough. I don't know how how.
I'm still early days.
Yeah, but like you must be thinking, okay, in 15 years, 20 years, how's your relationship going to be with them?
Yeah.
And it's
look, and I draw on my own relationship with my dad. So I mean, you've only got your own reference point,
Definitely.
right? So how do you be the dad?
Yeah.
I left home when I was 6.
You left home when you were 6?
I was in boarding school, full-time boarding school.
I was in boarding school too. You left home when you were 6?
Yes, my parents lived in Nigeria.
Okay.
And schooling back in the early 80s was not great.
Yeah.
So England was a great time, a great place to learn, to be educated. Wow. So I was in boarding school. Yeah.
What?
And I stayed there, never went back. So it was like you do 3 months term, full.
Yes.
And then you go back for a month home.
Yes.
Then 3 months, then a month home, and so on and so forth. So
how'd you find boarding school?
Look, I didn't like it at first, but you just adapt to it. You learn to it. But it meant that when I was growing up, I never had that closeness with my parents.
Okay.
So now, with how I am with my kids, it's like I squeeze them every opportunity I can get.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
pure love. Yeah.
So it's I think you can only use the reference that you have in your own life to how you want to live your life with your own children.
Yeah.
But we're all figuring it out. No one has the answers.
That's what I'm saying. There isn't a book for it, and that's what you have to remind yourself all the time. But I just find it quite easy to be self-critical, and I like to think that I'm somebody who's able to see 2 sides of a coin, but definitely coming to terms with the fact that your children really know that they're right a lot of the time. In fact, probably just as much as I'm right, they're right, and as many times as they're wrong, I'm wrong. Because why? They've left the nest. They're essentially part of this human race. They've got valid voices, but yeah, it's I think sometimes I forget that I'm 52. I just keep on thinking that I'm younger than that.
When you're growing up in the UK now as a young Muslim, okay, the beard is getting grown out.
Right.
Are you losing friends? Are people starting to look at you in a different way?
I mean, I lost
your name changed. You used to be called Joel.
Yeah, that's right. I changed my name because I wanted to go for the pilgrimage, and they said to me, "You can't give you a visa because you're not a Muslim." And I said, "No, I'm a Muslim. I became a Muslim like 6 months ago." They're like, "Yeah, but we don't have any proof." So I said, "Okay, get a certificate from the mosque." They said, that will do it." I went to the mosque, but the person was on holiday. I went back to the embassy, Saudi embassy. I said, "He's on holiday." Yeah. They said, "We can't do it. If you had an Arabic name, not a problem. Because only Muslims can go for the pilgrimage." I said, "Wait, if I had an Arabic name, you give me the visa?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll see you tomorrow." I left. I went to a solicitor, changed my name by deed poll, paid the solicitor. I remember paying them £5, changed my name. She said to me, "What do you want to change it to?" I was like, I don't know. So I called a old phone where you dial. I called a friend and I said to him, "Look, I need to get the visa. I'm going to change my name from Joel to a Muslim name so I can get the visa. What should I change it to?" He said, "You look like an Abdurahman."
What was his name?
Kaja. He was from Trinidad.
I thought it was something like Dave.
No, Dave said I look like an Abdurahman. No, it was Kaja. He said to me, he said, "You look like an Abdurahman." I said, "Okay, cool." Put down the phone. She said, "How do you spell it?" I was like, "Oh, no." I called him back again. I said, "How do you spell it?" He gave me the spelling of the name. And that was it. The next day I went to the passport office, and 2 days after that, I think I went back to the Saudi embassy. Wow, he was like, "Oh, quick. You again?" I was like, "Yeah, but this time Abdurahman." I was going to change it back, but then everybody knew me as Abdurahman. So I lost a lot of friends when I became a Muslim, but I made a lot of new friends as well. Most importantly, I was fortunate enough that within almost a year, I guess, of converting to Islam, I met my wife. And that's a cliche, but became my best friend, of course.
When you used to go into the mosque in the UK, did you feel, as one of the only few white people there, did you feel a little bit?
I felt so awkward,
self-conscious.
Oh man, the first time
you don't belong here and you don't belong there. Like,
first time I went into the mosque, no fault of any of the people there, it's just how I felt.
It's just human nature.
And I'll never say that it wasn't like that. I remember the first time I went into a mosque, I was petrified, absolutely petrified, because I didn't know how people would accept me. And of course, nobody really could care less that I was there. People were fine, people were welcoming. But I was conscious of the fact that I'm in an environment that I never imagined I would be in. I mean, I grew up hating religion. I absolutely hated it. And so now to be in a place of worship, that was very deep for me. Yeah. I remember the first time I heard this like commotion in the mosque and people fighting and shouting, and so, oh my God, like this is not a safe place to be. And then I found out, wait, they weren't shouting or arguing. It was just Arabs just joking together. They were talking about, I think one of them bought some hummus sandwiches or falafel sandwiches and who was going to serve who. And they were just showing love to each other, but it was just a different culture, one that I wasn't used to.
If it was shawarma, you'd been all over that.
There would be no questions asked. 100%. Yeah, I'd be right in there.
Let me talk to you a little about leadership now, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
you literally help leaders become better leaders.
Yeah, that's it.
So how did the boy who was kicked out of schools, right, who got a 3-month sort of job in Saudi in a leadership role, who got booted out of that, ended up actually helping so many people figure out their potential as a leader?
Okay, brilliant question. When I first got that job in Saudi, I was on 3 months probation. I actually started there as an English teacher. They kicked out the manager overnight. They got rid of him. I walked into work and they told me, go and sit in the manager's office. We just need somebody to keep the seat warm until we find someone. After 2 or 3 days went by, I was like, maybe I can give it a shot. Went downstairs, talked to the CEO. I said, listen, if I really do a good job, is there any way that I can get this as my permanent job? He said, Abdurahman, if you kill it and we don't find anybody else, the job's yours. I just took that. That's all I needed to hear. Looking back, realized that he was just saying, look, if we're totally desperate and we don't find anybody else, the job's yours. Anyway, I worked blood, sweat, and tears for 3 months. I even slept in the office at times. I gave it everything I had. I thought, what does a manager do? I thought about my dad, different reference points, what I saw on television, and I gave it my all. And after 3 months, everybody hated me. Everybody hated me. Nobody would listen to what I had to say. And I was the most hated person in the organization. I thought they were going to terminate me. Franchise manager from the Middle East, Khalil Campbell, came down from Riyadh to Jeddah to see me.
His name was Khalil Campbell?
Yes.
Okay. Was he he converted?
He was.
He was a Brit who
He
converted?
also, I believe he converted to Islam as well.
Okay.
And he was somebody that I had never met at that time, but I'd always heard about him. You know, he was really running things. He was doing an incredible job, and he was just the main guy. And for him to come all the way down from the head office in Riyadh to Jeddah to talk to me, I was convinced that this was my last day in the company. I remember the night before saying to my wife, I said, babes, like, I think I've blown it. You know, Khalil's coming down and he said, we need to talk. I thought it was going to be my last day on the job. I don't think I slept much that night. And then he came in, he sat down, he said, listen, it's a disaster. I can't believe how bad things are. I've spoken to the team. Like, literally everybody hates you, you know, and you've got no idea what you're doing. You know, I had my head down. I was like, all right, you don't need to tell me all this. I know all this. You know, I get it. I screwed up. He said, it's a mess and you have no idea what you're doing, but it's not your mistake. It's our mistake. We left you in that position and we didn't give you the tools that you needed to succeed. You've never done this before. So he said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a tailor-made program for you. And he did. He sat down with me. I remember we went all over the place and he mentored me and essentially was the first person that allowed me to see that leadership can be learnt.
Do you think your story, it's a beautiful story, I think your story at the time, he saw something in you that reminded him of him? And that kid who was sort of in between two worlds?
You have to ask Khalil that. I don't know. I met up with Khalil. Again, we were reunited in Dubai about 2 years ago. You know, we had an amazing time seeing each other. I hadn't seen him since those days.
Does he have a beard?
He always had.
Not like yours.
We always used to say that he was blessed. He had the most perfect goatee beard. He never trimmed it or cut it. It just used to grow like Malcolm X.
Do we believe that?
I believe anything that Khalil said. That guy's honestly, Khalil is one of the most special people to me because he is the person. I mentioned him at the start of my book. He is the person who I attribute much of my success to, because without him doing what he did and taking the time to really mentor me, regardless if he saw anything in me or not. It's because of him that I fell in love with leadership. And that's where the passion for leadership started. So even when it wasn't my full-time job, it was always my passion. It was always a side hustle for me.
And now you're paying it forward to other people.
I like to think that that's what I'm doing. I try and emulate Khalil and help as many people as I can, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So what is the feeling like when you're speaking to a leader who doesn't think they need any help? Do you even bother? Do you even try? Or do you just walk away and say, I just want to focus my time on energy on people that actually are open and receptive?
I mean, I'll always have a conversation with people. I don't mind having a conversation with people, but it's what you're looking for in somebody is a growth mindset. There's some people often ask me, one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, what's the most essential, quality for a leader? And whilst there are so many, and you can't just say this is the main one, certainly one of the most important ones is self-awareness. If somebody has self-awareness, they can accept their shortcomings, their areas of weakness, and also they acknowledge and accept and celebrate their strengths. That's the perfect place to start. But without that, it's going to be a pretty short conversation.
How quickly can you tell if someone's a good leader or not? How long does it take you? Your radar?
Look, if I was to answer just from the heart, I'd tell you within a minute or two. But
what's the giveaway? Before you go on the weight, what's the giveaway?
They talk about themselves and their accomplishments. The best, I had a wonderful meeting with a lady today, and she was, we got on so well, and she's a very, very senior position. We got on so well because the first thing she started doing was talking about the struggles she has, the challenges she faces. And most of us, when we sit down with somebody who we recognize, wait, this person's either on a level with me or maybe got some value that I can benefit from, we want to say to that person, oh, you know what? I'm really struggling with something. Can I share something with you? Like most of us, if we meet somebody, regardless of whatever field it's in, whether it's in leadership, whether it's in health and nutrition, if we're sitting with somebody and we say, this person's a bit of an expert, you want to be vulnerable with them. That's the mark of for me, one of the marks.
I couldn't agree with you more. Here's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Are women more open to the idea of self-awareness and actualization?
I genuinely would struggle to answer that, and I'll tell you why. I could answer it intuitively, but I'd be so cautious of doing that just because I like to go based on data, and I can't say that.
So
what I can say is I've enjoyed working with people in senior positions, ladies in senior positions, far more a lot of the time than men. There are qualities that you find that you don't find a lot of men. That's for sure.
So most of I help clients with how they show up authentically, how to communicate, right? How to deliver impact in meetings. That was my old life in corporate and the podcasting world, sort of merged them together.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are female.
Yes.
And I found that females are much more, they're harder on themselves, but they're much more open to accepting help.
Yeah.
If you're a man in your 40s and you're an Arab or 50s, it's hard. It's hard for them to understand, but I'm a C-level. I'm in this position. I don't need help. I'm great. I'm wonderful as I am.
Yeah.
I find that women typically have a higher receptivity to this kind of learning and development because they have a high level of potential awareness and also empathy.
It's interesting.
They're ready to listen. They're ready to understand.
Yeah.
They don't want to judge someone. They don't want to come and shove their own preconceived bias in someone else's.
Right.
No. They sit without judgment.
Yeah.
Help me.
It's very interesting. I think the last few events that I've done where I've done book signings.
Your son is nodding along.
Is he? Yeah.
Yeah, Luca, yeah. Preach, Luca, yeah.
But no, it's interesting. The last few book signings, and he's been there for them. I'd say the number of females that come over with really good questions to men is probably 5 to 1. So for every 10 females, there'll be 2 men who come over and have questions. There's a big difference. There is a big difference. Yeah.
Your book is called The Unlikely Leader?
Yeah, that's right.
So what was the inspiration behind it? Just your story?
It starts from myself. That
you write what you know.
I think that my story, after years of experience now, the majority of people that I've worked with in leadership positions, the majority of them never expected to be in the positions they were in. The majority many of them had started with engineering degrees, for example. No one goes through the pain of earning a degree in engineering with a view that one day I'm going to be in corporate and so on and so forth. They had a completely different vision for themselves. The majority of people in leadership positions didn't expect to necessarily be in those leadership positions. They're the unlikely leaders. They were often overlooked. They were the people that weren't thought of as being tomorrow's leaders.
They weren't picked number one in gym class.
It definitely weren't, or just about any.
Were you picked number one in gym class?
No, I wasn't at all.
You weren't even in gym.
I wasn't in class.
They didn't even let you in class.
Most of my exam results, so if you go to my exam records, it's not that I got D's or E's or F's. I just got U, and U used to just mean unattended. Yeah, it didn't show up.
Have you done an IQ test recently? Do you know what your actual IQ is?
No. Just keep it as what it was. Yeah, it's genius. It's that. It's genius.
I bet you use that on your kids all the time.
No, they're the geniuses. Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
How much difficulty have you been through in your life? Like really, and take your time with this, because you came from wealth and then you were homeless. You had a family and they kind of turned their back on you. I know it's being extreme, but it's kind of what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
You married at a very young age, right, to create a brand new family. You married a girl of mixed race, and you're mixed race. So you're adding more and more challenges to your life, whilst converting from Judaism to Islam. I mean, that's big in anyone's book. And on top of that, you come to live in a region where it's unfamiliar to you, right?
Yeah.
It looks like you're a man who looks for challenges, or who looks for or thrives in adversity. I don't know what it is. I'm just trying to. I want you to help fill in the blanks.
I'm somebody who, up until 18, never tasted of any difficulty. I used to cry and refuse to go to school if I had a couple of spots on my face when I was a teenager. That's how obsessed I was with my looks. If I couldn't get my hair to go the way that I wanted it to go, I'd break down. I'm not going to school. If I couldn't get the right hair wax, and I was a very egotistical, spoiled young man who never tasted an ounce of difficulty. And then at 18 years old, everything changed, and I found myself in a world that I never imagined I'd be in, suffering in a way that I never imagined I would suffer in, and I wasn't prepared for at all. I met people who took advantage of that and went through incredibly difficult situations, both physically, mentally, and suffered a lot.
What do you mean physically?
Well, I had a lot of physical confrontations, fights in London, a lot of violence. At that time, there was a lot. I went through a lot of violence, a lot of violent situations. When I became a Muslim, people were either...
Did you beat people up?
No, I didn't people. I'd never had a fight in my life, so I wasn't prepared.
Were they picking fights up with you?
Yeah, so I wasn't prepared for that. I'd never been punched in my face before, and the first time I got punched in the face, thought, oh, that's what getting punched in the face feels like. And I went through some extreme situations. Those situations, whilst not prepared for, I got through, and I got through because I've always had, or from when I first discovered, I guess when I found myself homeless, I'm pretty resilient. I don't really care too much. No, I'm not going to keep it PG, but I don't really care what people think. And we all care what people think. If I didn't care what people think, I wouldn't have brushed my beard before this podcast started. But that's because I was out of how I want to be perceived. But if you don't like my beard, for example, I couldn't care less. If you want to be nice to me about it, be nice to me. If you want to be an arsehole, be an arsehole about it. It's okay. But I don't care.
I'm a bit scared now.
No.
I don't know what to say.
The point being, I'm just I don't care. And so when I married my wife, by the way, my wife's not mixed race. My wife is Ghanaian, so she's not mixed race. My children, of course, are biracial now. But when I married her, whilst some of my family were not too happy. I remember my dear grandma Edna. The first time she met her, she couldn't pronounce her name, Khadija. She called her Katishka because
it's Russian.
Yeah, because she had family in Poland, and we've got family from Poland and Russia and other places somewhere along the way. So Katishka, she's very black, isn't she? That's what she said, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So
did your wife hear this at that time? No,
but I told her about it afterwards. I told her about it. But the point is, I have been through a lot, more than people will ever know, but it also, I don't want to sound cliche, it made me who I am. I have a reference point. So as bad as life can be, I know it's never as bad as it was back then. As difficult as times might be, it doesn't compare to those days there.
So what's the hardest thing you've done or been through?
The hardest thing was when I found myself homeless. That was the most difficult part of my life. I had absolutely nothing and nobody. I went out with my family that night, went out for a nice Italian meal. We used to do it every Friday night. I imagine having it's like me telling you now, by the way, Lucas, at the end of this podcast, just to let you know, you're no longer living in this house. You're separated from your family. You're not going to see your kids again. That's it. You're out of the country For example, that level of shock and trauma, and you can't imagine what something like that is like. And that's how I found myself, at 18 years old. So that was one of the most difficult things I ever had to go through. I suppose in many ways, burying my daughter was one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do. But when I buried my daughter, I was so fortunate that I was so comforted by my faith, knowing that when I was putting her in the ground, this is all part of God's plan, and I'm going to see her again. And when I see her, she'll be in perfect health. So
your energy, may God rest her soul.
Yeah,
thank you. Your energy is incredible. It's calming, it's peaceful, but it's also secure at the same time.
Okay, that's nice.
Like there's a real strength to it.
Right,
It's coming off in waves.
Okay,
this is the part of the show. You take control. So there's a bunch of questions on those golf balls.
I've been watching your content. I know the drill. I knew I need my glasses for this.
The eye test. Here we go.
Okay.
No, it goes well with the beard, your glasses.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it. It's very kind of you.
Master training is a little bit different to other training programs. Our job is to get you in and out as quickly and as effectively as possible. In just 4 sessions, you're going to go from a confident speaker potentially into an incredible speaker. We do that with the FAME approach. F stands for foundation building. All the information that you need to know in just 3 hours. The A stands for authentic voice. We're going to help you unlock what your real voice is and how you need to present for the rest of your life. The M stands for mobilizing. We start to mobilize you to think and act and present differently. And lastly, E for empowered speaker. In the final session, you're going to leave us feeling confident, feeling empowered, and ready to conquer.
What has a lifetime of prejudice taught you about people and yourself? What do you mean by a lifetime of prejudice?
It's kind of what we talked about before, right? So I remember when we spoke on the phone, when you got married, for example, marrying a Ghanaian at the time, there was a lot of prejudice that you felt. You couldn't walk the streets at times. When you became a Muslim,
I'm with you.
There was a lot of prejudice against you because you were a white guy with a huge beard.
That's right.
So you faced it. You faced it.
Yeah.
So, but what has that taught you about people? Right, and how people are, as well as, of course, about yourself.
I'm just going to tell you what comes into my first comes in.
Be human, man. Be human.
What has a lifetime of prejudice taught you about people and yourself? It might sound like a contradiction, but it taught me that people can change. Somebody can be prejudiced today and change their opinion tomorrow. Sometimes all it takes is a positive interaction, positive experience with somebody. So I'm not sure if that answers the question how it's meant to be answered, but after seeing so much prejudice, I also know that people are capable of changing as well.
How quickly can that take effect? That kind of change.
I think it can happen very quickly. Just depends how deep-rooted people's things are. Sometimes you have an opinion about something that's you hold on to it like it's it's absolutely part of who you are. But actually, if you've got an open mind, you can pretty quickly realize, that's
is there something that you got wrong?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'll tell you, I used to really hate Muslims. I used to hate Arabs in particular. I thought they were crazy. I was wrong. I used to, there are so many things, and until today, I should say, by the way, there are so many things I'm constantly finding out that I'm wrong about, it's so funny. When my children were younger, they'd say to me, Dad, why is this like this? Or how do you do this? Or what's the answer to this? And you just tell them what you think, right? Okay, they could go on Google and check and blah. Now they fact check everything. And things that you thought were right maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, based on your knowledge and your understanding, you come to realize, I was wrong about that, So having seen so much prejudice, maybe I'm just overly optimistic, but it just shows me that there's always the possibility and the hope of change.
We hope so. Like 2026 has been a very difficult year for this region.
Yeah.
Unprecedented, really, what's been happening. From an outsider perspective, from people in the UK, your friends, looking in on this region, and they're seeing the Arabs and the Iranians fighting each other with the Israelis and the Americans involved. What kind of prejudices do they put against this part of the world from outside?
Right.
And then what is your sort of interpretation or your feedback to them from within this part of the world?
Right. I think the feeling from people back home is, here we go again. This is just what happens in this part of the world from time to time. It just happens to be happening where we are, whereas usually it might be in other countries that have had the problems historically over the years. This is what these people do.
Fight, bomb, they kill each other.
This is typically what they do.
And they is Arabs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So this is what they do.
Isn't that ridiculous?
It is. So then again, in terms of how to, or overcoming prejudice or correcting it, it's not difficult to explain to people how wrong they are. It's not difficult to explain. All you got to show people is, I'll give you a good example. My mother, 76 years old, bless her, who I love to bits and talk to almost every single day. She caught the Dubai bug. So she came out here a couple of years ago and was like, "Oh, it's not bad, is it?" Then she came out.
Did she have the shawarma?
Yeah, she did. Yeah. So she came out for a week, and then after that, I think she came for 3 months. And then last time she came for 6 months, and loved it. Has become a resident now of the UAE. Spends 6 months of the year here and 6 months of the year back home. When things started happening here, and the first night when we all got the alerts about the missile strikes, she and her husband set up, it's quite sweet, they set up a little shelter inside the bathroom. She said, "We're in the bathroom, we've got some digestive biscuits, 2 chairs, don't worry about us." And we're in our place, like, "Mum, relax, everything's fine." But she was petrified. I mean, literally, she was in the Second World War as far as she was concerned. It's all kicking off. A few weeks after that, she said something to me, which I think is really, really beautiful and worth sharing. She said to me that it's unsettling, but she doesn't feel unsafe. And when you look logically at what the government has done to protect people, to make people feel secure, rightly so, you understand there's something special happening here. I think people back home can't understand that there are people who live here from every single country in the world, practically, who genuinely love the leadership. We're not being paid to say it. We don't lose anything if we don't say it, but it comes from people's hearts. And I think back home, you don't get that, right? Because nobody loves like the leadership the way that we love the leadership here. It's just it's difficult for people to understand.
I have nothing to add because I fully agree with everything that you're saying. We are very fortunate. No one belongs in Dubai or UAE, but everybody belongs here.
Yeah, nice.
And we've sort of made it. We've all made it our home.
Yeah.
And there isn't a feeling in the world better than when you're first arriving back into Dubai from holiday or somewhere else. And if you're Emirates, like I love Emirates.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
But when you arrive and you just land, and you're like, there's a bit of
100%.
It just feels like it just feels it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
100%. And I haven't never really felt that before. And it's to do with a lot of different things. But leadership is obviously definitely part of that.
For sure.
But there is a lot of prejudice from people outside to this part of the world. They look at the people, the way we live, the whole Dubai bling culture and all that. And they also see Arabs, unfortunately, as people who are people who love to fight, who love wars, who are terrorists.
Right.
And it's something that the Arabs have been living with for a long, long time.
Yeah.
We used to watch, and I was a kid growing up, I used to watch these movies, these Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
And there's always the Arabs, the bad guys.
Yeah.
It was either the Arabs or the Russians.
The Russians, yeah. One of the two, yeah. One of the two.
I don't know who got it worse.
Yeah, the only bad people in the world.
But that sort of indoctrination.
Yeah, definitely.
And now you have gone from that side to this side.
Yeah.
If in a way, right?
Yeah.
Geographically anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Do you feel an extra weight of pressure to defend Islam because of that? Because you were part of that kind of culture that would see, you said it yourself.
That's a very good point.
You used to hate Muslims before or see them in a certain way. Now you are one. Do you feel you have to fight extra hard?
I think that's something that I haven't actually thought about until you mentioned it now. And when you were saying it, my first response was no. But now when I think about it, remember I told you when we had a chat yesterday, I said, I don't really use my social media to promote my company, my business. I use my social media, millions of followers, because I want to show people that you can look like me, but just be a regular person. Like, I'm no different to you. We might have different sets of values and so on, but there's so much that we're going to align on, right? We can have a chat about just about anything. You got a sense of humor. I got a sense of humor. You got a family. I got a family.
You're good looking. I'm good looking.
Right. We both got good beards.
You said it, not me.
We both got good beards.
Yeah.
I do feel for the first time, I hadn't thought about it until you just mentioned it, because I had such a terrible opinion of Muslims, the Arabic world, Arabic speaking world. Maybe that's why I do put such a big emphasis on just trying to show people we're normal people, man. Like there's no major difference here. Yeah, we got a difference in faith, which is a deep topic, but we're humans, right? We're all here. We're all on the planet.
Religion has been used in so many bad ways.
Which is why I hated it. Like everything I used to listen to, all the music I used to listen to,
because it's been used. Because it's been used. Again, any story you want to spin, any narrative, you can make anything good or bad.
Yeah,
based on the story.
Definitely.
There was a famous quote by Shakespeare. My only bit of learning I remember. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Ooh,
right?
Deep.
There's nothing good or bad. It's just how you want to use it, twist it, apply it. And religion has been used in a bad way to create and instigate wars and indoctrinations and certain thinking. And it's awful, man. Honestly.
Absolutely.
It sucks. I'm a Christian.
Right.
I married a girl who wasn't a Christian.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm surrounded by people of multi-faith.
Yes.
I had on last season Faris Al-Hamadi. I don't know if you know Faris.
Yeah, of course. I know Faris, yes.
He has a good beard as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Yours is better. I've had different people from different walks of life. And this show is about trying to spotlight just as much as possible original truth and not bullshit.
Yeah.
There's too much bullshit.
Yeah, definitely.
And how it's been labeled and faked. And okay, you're a British guy who converted. Big whoop.
Right.
It shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
But it is because there's not many people like you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Right.
Right. How you look.
Yeah.
And I said right at the beginning, you have a strong look.
Right.
That shouldn't be an issue.
Right.
I shouldn't need to say that.
Yeah.
But because there aren't that many people like you, you stand out.
Yeah. But I say true, but that's a great opportunity and it's a great blessing for me. Like people don't forget me when they meet me. You know, it's pretty easy to remember me and point me out in the crowd. And you know, I just think that just like anything, look, you got cameras filming. These cameras could be used for good. They could be used for bad. Your podcast could be used for good. It could be used for bad.
I hope you know why I'm doing this, though, right?
Yes. I'm
trying to give everybody as much as an opportunity to really share their voice.
Yeah, which is brilliant.
And you've got some great stuff to say.
Which is why, by the way, I told you that I get a lot of requests to go on podcasts and I don't go on the majority of them because I'm not sure that it's going to give me an opportunity just to show who I am. And that's why immediately when I think the only question I asked was, how can I give value to your audience? And once I got the answer to that, I said, I'm in, you know, which I don't do which is not criticism of other people. I wish them all the very best, but I'm selective about. I've done very few podcasts.
I appreciate it.
You know? No, I appreciate
you.
We're
delighted to have you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Let's find another question.
Right,
come on.
Okay,
we've got 5 to go.
Pass it down. Is successful leadership more about learned scientific behavior or intuitive emotional depth? Oof.
So I read somewhere that you think leadership can be taught, right? That there's a scientific approach to it.
Yeah.
But there's also the other side, which is that sort of emotional depth, right, and understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which not necessarily you can teach.
So you need both.
Pick a side.
Okay, I'm going to pick a side.
Please pick a side.
I will pick a side.
Don't say it 35,000
Is it successful leadership more about learned scientific behavior?
Is it more of this or is it more of that?
If I had to pick one, I'm going to say intuitive emotional depth. Because the reason I'm going to say that though, and it's not black and white, it's a bit of a tricky one.
I said more of.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with it because as long as you have that emotional intelligence, you have that side to you, you will pull back from making some really big and obvious mistakes that might hurt people. You might make mistakes without knowledge that ultimately aren't good maybe for the business or you might not do things in the best way, but you're going to hurt less people if you've got that emotional understanding, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
You know the phrase slightly related, slightly unrelated, follow your gut.
Yeah.
When it comes to decision making.
Yeah.
So the gut is because it's not the heart and it's not the brain.
Right.
So where does that sort of play when it comes to the sort of scientific approach about this? The book says I should do this.
Right.
So my heart is kind of saying I need to do that.
Yeah.
Where does your gut come into it?
It's a big part of things. You know, I think one of the most important things of decision making, you look at all the various models for effective decision making, gathering the data, speaking to the team, so on and so forth, but they'll tell you time and time again, supported by research, you have to listen to your gut. You've got to go with your intuition a lot of the time. There's what's that film about the pilot who landed on the Hudson River? Sully, yeah. Sully with Tom Hanks.
With the Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, right? Okay. Incredible film and a brilliant example of a leader, by the way, the pilot, Captain Sully. When he made the decision to land the plane on the Hudson River, he did all the things that a good leader should do. He got data. He checked with the control tower. He checked with his co-pilot. Just before they landed the plane, he said, any suggestions, any ideas? He did everything a leader should do, but ultimately, he didn't go with what the data said alone. He decided to go with his gut. And because of that, he landed the plane safely and nobody died. Going with your gut, it's incredibly important. But again, to do that, you have to be brave. You have to be accepting of the fact that this might go badly wrong.
So here's the thing: a good leader always takes on advice from others, takes on counsel,
Okay.
then ultimately it's their decision, whether it's a he or a she
Sure.
to make that call. But it's very difficult to not be influenced by people.
Absolutely.
So how do you know it's actually coming from your own gut and not from 5 other guts?
I think that's a good point. I think understanding, and this is where, when I say leadership can be learned, it's a perfect example. You have to look at, once you become aware of the different types of biases that we all have, confirmation bias, or it worked before, so it's going to work again, or whatever it might be, conformity bias, so many different, when you can understand all of these things, the influence they can have on your decision making. For example, one of the best things that any leader can do when they want to make an important decision is to go to the person in their team they know usually disagrees with them. The person that's not the cheerleader, the one that's not always nodding their head and giving you the thumbs up. No, the one who's like, why are they always disagreeing with everything I do?
The asshole in the room, yeah.
That's the person you go to. I know that Warren Buffett, for example, before he makes a lot of big, important decisions, would call somebody that he knows is going to disagree with making this investment, and he'll have it out with that person. Those people are your allies. And again, it comes down to bravery, accepting that every day in leadership could be your last day.
You need to be a very strong leader, but also, more importantly, you need to be a very strong person.
Absolutely.
To have people like that around you, detractors, who are going to keep you on your toes. I mean, usually we have yes men. We love yes men around us, right?
But how do you keep those people on your toes? This is another thing. So leaders go wrong because, look, I'll give you an example. I made a LinkedIn post. It's in the book. I made a LinkedIn post about it just the other day. One of the biggest mistakes I ever did was when I slammed the door. We had a meeting. There was somebody in the meeting who just was, I know, disagreeing with me for the sake of disagreeing. This person was just really, just pissing me off.
There was an agenda, very clear agenda.
Absolutely. I knew what he was doing. I should have just stayed calm. I felt myself getting riled up, and I knew I could hear my own voice was starting to change a little bit. I said, guys, we're going to take a timeout, 10 minutes. And I kept control. As I left the room, I lost control a bit and I gave the door a slam.
Can I ask you that on that? Because I can sense, I told you before, you have a strong energy.
Okay.
Is there a bit of anger bubbling beneath the surface? All of those years, that repression of the feelings. I mean, look, you were a wild kid. You went off the rails.
Yeah.
And then you converted. Then you found peace.
Yeah.
Do you still find yourself having to control that anger?
No, I can say hand on heart with my son in the room. There were times when I was younger, so in my 30s, absolutely. In my 30s, I think from my 30s to my 40s, I changed a lot. I developed a lot. I grew up a lot. I used to get really quite angry with people, people that cut me up on the road when I was driving. I'd be the guy that would get really, really upset and angry at those things. Now those things, they don't.
So here's the thing, right? If you're going to choose to follow a leader who's emotionless, who's that kind of cool, calm, but you never get to feel they're alive, or someone who's like up and down, but you can feel they're being authentic. I'm naturally going to go to that up and down person,
for sure,
because they're just being real. But what's better for the company is obviously that. So where's that balance?
But it depends, doesn't it? Because you can go up and down. Well, I've gone up and down in this discussion. I've seen your response to me going up and down, but my up and down has limitations to it. So up and down is good, right? Having that you can see when somebody's really feeling something. You can see when, hold on. But you also have emotional safety in knowing, but there's a limit to this. This person's not about to start doing what I did back then and slam a door when leaving the room. See, when I slammed the door, we took a 10-minute break. When I came back,
did you break the door?
No, but dust. I distinctly remember, dust falling down from the door frame, right? And when I came back in, that same person that was really mouthing off in the meeting, he didn't say a thing. Victory, not really, because guess what? Neither did anybody else in the room.
You lost the room.
I lost the room, and I lost trust, and everybody knew that they were one word away from the same thing happening again. So having this Jekyll and Hyde type, behavior, that's unacceptable as a leader. Being emotionless, that's unacceptable. People should know when I'm upset, but they should also see that I'm mature enough to be able to control my emotions, control my decision-making, and not do what I used to do, which is just flip like a pancake.
So when people come to you and they ask for leadership advice and they ask for your track record as a leader, how do you justify it to them? Why you're the right person to lead them?
Firstly, I don't have to justify anything, and I might not be the right person for each individual. But what I can tell people is, or what I do tell people is, I've lived leadership. When I do leadership workshops, if I do coaching, I'm so grateful that I can say to people, I've been where you were. I've sat in those meetings. I know what it's like to go to sleep the night before, knowing that that next day might be your last day in the company. I get it. I've lived it. And I did it for a good 16 years before deciding to take my side hustle of kind of coaching and mentoring on the side and make that into my full-time business. No knock on people who do this, but a lot of people learn leadership from books and teach leadership. You got to get a lot of life coaches in their late 20s and 30s.
How can you be a life coach when you're 20?
Honestly,
do me a favor.
Look, I don't want to.
You don't have to. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Do me a favor.
You do it.
Life coach, you're 20.
Yeah.
What life have you lived? Exactly?
Yeah.
How many kids have you had? How many grandchildren have you had? How many ups and downs have you faced in your life?
It's difficult to comprehend. And I think that those type of things, again, giving examples of how I used to be when I was younger, those type of things would send me off. I'd be like, I'd lay into people like that. You're just full of crap, But now I know that there are exceptions. There are probably some people who have done incredible things, especially nowadays, the way that the world is, probably have done some incredible things in their 20s.
Yeah.
It's not the norm. And the majority of them.
But a life coach, a life coach gives you advice about life. Okay? That's the job of a life coach, is to advise you on your life. If you've had a quarter of your life and the other person has had 3/4 of a life, what advice are you going to tell the person who's had 3/4 of a life?
I agree with you, but the only
There's no but.
No. What I would say to that is, I remember always hearing the statement that, experience is the best teacher. But actually, that's not correct. There's a lot of stupid elderly people walking about.
I understand. I get it.
Experience that you learn from is the best teacher. But I think that
you're a diplomatic man. I appreciate that.
But I didn't used to be. It just, I think that again, going back to the other question about prejudice, I'm so conscious of the fact that I thought I had all the answers before, and I know now. I'm still figuring it out.
Hopefully, you can figure out some more of those balls inside in there, mate. Yeah,
those old man glasses back on.
It's just it is what it is, right?
How did atheism and converting from Judaism to Islam reshape your understanding of faith?
Reshape your understanding of faith from not having any faith, to going into a position where you would you live by your faith. You swear by your faith. Well, you don't swear.
But this is it shapes every single thing that I do in my life.
And I'm sure the people in your life, the people that you accept in and out, are governed by faith as well.
Yeah, they are, which doesn't mean I exclude anybody. Obviously, it doesn't have the same faith, but it's just that, look, faith, when I was younger, regardless of whether I had the label of an atheist or being Jewish or anything like that, I had a set of beliefs. I now today have a set of beliefs. There isn't, at that level, there's no difference. So that's why when I'm talking to an atheist tells me you're absolutely mad. What do you mean there's a God? I totally understand that. I get it. I really get where you're coming from. I'm not going to try and argue with you. I get it, man. I was there. Yeah. You got a set of beliefs. I got a set of beliefs. That brings us together. It does. On a kind of personal level, how did my life change? It changed because I used to think that I was the center of everything. What I like doing, that's what I'm going to do. As long as it doesn't hurt anybody. I was never somebody that hurt people. But as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, I'm going to do it. I'm going to drink. I'm going to smoke. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm not hurting anyone, and it makes me feel good. Now I don't have that. Now I have a thing. It might make you feel good, but it doesn't mean it is good. And I could give you an analogy. In the past, when I was younger, I used to have a lot of fun. I mean, crazy fun. Fun's an underestimate, I'm not doing it justice. I used to have a lot of fun. But when I get home and, I'd be lying on my bed by myself and the music stopped, the clubs are closed and, the alcohol is coming out of my system, the fun stopped and I'm not happy. There's a big difference between having fun and being happy. So having fun is like when the lights are on. When the lights go off, have you still got a light inside? That's what I have now. So now I have this inner peace. I have happiness. I have fun, a good type of fun. But more than that, I have happiness.
So let's say Abdurahman Jr. Okay,
Yes.
he goes out. He starts living a bit of a wild life. That one night becomes 2 nights. That becomes
you've heard about him, yeah?
That becomes 6 months.
Yeah.
At what point do you start to inject yourself into the situation to tell him, look, I've been there, I've done it, or do you let him figure out itself? Because no one came to you. You figured out your own and you did okay with it. So as the role of a dad, if you start seeing your kids going through something similar.
Yeah, I jump in at the beginning. But the way that
is that the right thing to do?
I couldn't tell you if it's right or if it's wrong, but you're asking me a question, I'm answering you honestly. If I saw my kids going down a road that I felt was dangerous for them, it wasn't good for them, I'm jumping in. But how am I jumping in? So, the way that I'm jumping in, maybe jump's not the right the right word to use, but I'm talking to them. And I've had that, with my children as they've grown up. I'll talk to them. If I see them doing something, I'm going to talk to them. But leadership, we talk about leadership all the time, but we always think of people in a boardroom. Leadership, that's not leadership. Mothers are leaders, fathers are leaders, teachers are leaders, so on and so forth. So my role as a leader, I can't make them do anything, but maybe I can influence them. And you can only influence people when you talk to them. And you can only, if you want to get through to somebody, well, most of the time, telling somebody what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing is really not going to work. But trying to influence them by showing them, this is how I see the situation. And my advice to you is to think about this or think about that. It's the best way I think is to get through to somebody.
In your life, do you live your life fully halal, or are you someone who takes everything super serious, or do you have places where you sort of bend the rules a bit? You know what, this and that is allowed, this is fine. Because again, from the UK,
yeah,
I'm sure you used to eat bacon sandwiches when you were younger.
Oh, the first thing I could do when I get in from school, 8 pork sausages. I remember one of the best moments of my life was when Wool's made microwavable pork sausages.
There you go.
Because I only had to wait 1 minute.
Never tried that. But how difficult is it for you to go from that to that?
Yeah.
And is it from that to that, or is it a little bit? You know what? I kind of like that. We're gonna keep that. It's fine. So I have my peace with God. He's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I get it, and everybody's different, and there are people that will always follow rules more than others.
Faris follows a lot of rules,
right? Yeah, sure. I would say that I try to follow as many rules as I can, and I don't bend rules. Not when it comes to my faith. I don't compromise it. I don't consider it as being okay for me, talking about me, for me to turn a blind eye to this or I'll have a little bit of this or a little bit of that. As far as I'm concerned, if my faith says it, then I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. But I'm human. I'm going to fall short. But as much as I can, my faith is in me now. It's part of who I am. There was a time when I was a very new convert to Islam where I remember waking up in the morning and everything would be so new to me, I would forget to pray. We pray 5 times a day. I would forget to pray. I'd have to write notes to myself the night before and have a message, on my door saying, pray before leaving. Because the first thing I'd still do when waking up when I was newly converted to Islam, I'd smoke a cigarette, I'd smoke many things in the morning still, even as a Muslim at first, and completely forget that I was meant to be praying or doing anything. But that was many years ago now. I'm 52 now. I was 18 when I converted. So to me, I couldn't imagine consciously doing something that I know I shouldn't be doing, which doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. I make mistakes every single day. I do things every single day that I shouldn't do, I'm sure, because nobody's perfect, But yeah, I'm one of those people I would, Allah says in the Quran, in the meaning of one of the verses, enter into the faith wholeheartedly. So that means I'm fully invested in this. I'm not half-stepping,
How's your Arabic, by the way?
According to my sons, it's terrible.
How's their Arabic?
Their Arabic's pretty good. Their Arabic's pretty good.
Does your wife speak Arabic?
She's like me. She's probably maybe a bit better than me. The Quran, she's really good at reading Arabic, and she studies the Quran incredibly well. She has her exam right now, actually, the time I'm doing this podcast. So I pray she passes. She's her exams are very, very difficult.
Tough, huh?
Yeah, she memorized huge portions of the Quran, which is amazing. I'm not as good as her.
Yeah.
She does hours of studies. I do 15 minutes a day. I have 15-minute Quran class a day with my teacher online.
That's nice.
So
every little helps.
Yeah. No, I think that's but that's the thing, right? That's good. I think it's all about consistency and discipline, no matter what it is, whether it's your faith, whether it's your physique.
Everything.
Exactly.
Leadership.
Yeah. Discipline. Yeah.
How many more do we have? 2 or 3?
Let me check.
I think we have 3 left.
Correct. Does your iconic identity help you to challenge stereotypes or reinforce, strengthen them?
This is your iconic identity.
Yes.
The beard, which you celebrate everywhere. Does it help you to challenge stereotypes, or does it help you to...
It definitely helps me to challenge stereotypes. I certainly hope it does. I certainly hope that when every time I walk into a room or if I get on stage, whatever it is, people's immediate thoughts about who this guy is, that I shatter them. That's my goal. Every time I get on stage, every time I do a talk, I want to absolutely destroy people's preconceptions of what and who I might be.
What happens if you didn't have the beard? What happens to you?
I'd like to think absolutely nothing. I'd
Yeah.
like to think it's not like Samson when they cut his hair and he lost all of his strength, for example.
Yeah.
I'm far more than my beard.
I'm
conscious that my beard is a complement of who I am. It's something that I do because of my faith. I don't do it for fashion. I do it because I believe it's something good for a man to have. Doesn't mean their beard's going to look like mine, but I believe that. I believe that that's a good thing. And if I didn't have it, I'm still me.
You're still you.
You can cut my arms off. I'm still me.
I'm with you.
Know?
The thing is, but you're very recognizable because of it.
Right.
And it has such a strong identity pull.
Okay.
On your YouTube channel, on your Insta, or your TikTok, whatever the case may be. It's iconic.
Right.
It's iconic.
Yeah.
And it's just hair.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just hair. I mean, everyone has it, you know?
Yeah.
No. So it's helping you to be able to sort of challenge those stereotypes.
It definitely helps me because
raise awareness
because you stand out. Now, there are times when it can be awkward. There are times when it can be difficult. There are times when sticking to what you believe, whether you're a Muslim or not, can be challenging. We all have our values, right? There are things that we don't want to compromise, but sometimes we might. It can be there are times you walk in a room and it's very obvious that people do not like what they see. That's all right.
Enjoy it.
Couldn't care less.
It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Let's crack on, my friend.
Couldn't care less.
How's the eyesight, by the way? Oh, the glasses are off.
Thank you for reminding me. In a world where AI is already replacing skills, what actually makes a human valuable? Wow.
So we've lost the IQ game. There's no point.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They will never be dumber than they are now. Yeah. AI is as dumb as it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
And they're already smarter than us.
Yeah.
So how do we show value?
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the most important things and something that I try to do every single day, and I'm sure I fall short at times, is I always like to give value and make people feel valued. AI can definitely give us value. I use it every single day. It can definitely give value, but it can't make somebody feel valued at the moment. Maybe in the future things will change. But I think that quality of being able to value people, but also make them feel valued by you, that might be saying thank you to somebody. That might be smiling at somebody. That might be giving somebody a gift, a handwritten note. It might just be saying to somebody, you know what? Every time I come in this cafe, you are the person that makes me feel welcome. Because you might think it, but how many of us say that to somebody? Say it to them. Imagine how you're going to make them feel. And according to research, when you make somebody feel good, it makes you feel good too. It actually lifts your level of happiness much higher than a bonus or a new job, new car. Feel value, give value, and make people feel valued. And I try and do it every single day. I don't at the moment see that AI, the world of AI, can do that. It can do one of those things. It can give value.
So if your grandkids growing up in this world, what kind of skill sets or what kind of lessons would you want to teach them that they can add value in the world?
Wow.
What you've said, or is there something you think beyond that they can also?
I think one of the most important things that I want my children, myself, my children, my grandchildren, to be able to empathize with people, right? To be able to see things from people's points of view and understand how other people are feeling. Because I think if you can do that, at least from a personal point of view, maybe I'm selfish, but so much of what I went through was because of an inability to see somebody else's point of view, and to become intolerant of another point of view. But to be able to accept that we might have completely different views on something, absolutely opposed to each other. But that doesn't mean it has to divide us. We can disagree without being disagreeable. I would hope that they would be able to be people who have very deep levels of empathy,
Do you think the world is getting less tolerant or more tolerant? It's a heavy sigh.
I'm going to say more tolerant.
You hope it's more tolerant.
It's definitely just intuitive, but also because I consider myself a rational optimist. So, I'm not just optimistic. Bad things do happen, but I'm also a rational optimist. And as much as the media and things that I consume, not all media, but when I consume a lot of media and social media, it can seem that the world's a terribly bleak and awful place. That isn't necessarily reality. And I think that there are people, just as much as terrible things are happening, there are people that are actually very open-minded and seeing the injustice in the world and realizing that not everything is as it seems. So Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic.
There's a lot of injustice in the world, and people are realizing it, but nothing's changing.
No, I agree. And if you look at the UK situation in the UK, the recent elections that they're having, it's astonishing to me that political party, the Reform Party, is unbelievable, because I remember the National Front, and I remember the National Front turned into this and turned into that.
BNP, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we had the National Front became the BNP, right? Yeah, and that's the first time the BNP went from just being thugs on the street that were fighting to no, we're wearing suits. And then but now you look at the traction that they're getting. It's shocking to me. But what's happening in the UK doesn't mean it's happening worldwide.
Sorry, but look at the US. The US is also far right.
Right.
It's becoming more and more far right. The
Yeah.
French, right?
Yeah.
Le Pen and still going.
Yeah.
I'm an optimist, and I generally love to try and bring positivity and good energy to people.
Yeah.
But there is a big fight on our hands to spread that light.
Yeah.
Because darkness is kicking our ass.
Yeah. Very true.
Too many bad people are running the show that are impacting the lives of the innocent.
Right.
And their lights are being dimmed. And unfortunately, there aren't enough people trying to shine back yet. I had a guy called Mo Gaudat on the show.
I know. Yeah.
He'd said the world has never been more in pain. And because of that, the world has never been more awake. Like we're wakening up because of that pain. It's like when you have a surgery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you need to do something about it because your arm is in real pain.
Yeah.
So I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
But I'm worried. I'm worried, man. I'm worried. Like there's so much injustice. Innocent lives being killed all the time.
Yeah.
Blind eyes are being turned all the time.
Yeah.
And for what?
But
value of human life. Where's the value of human life?
So whilst I agree with that 100%, personally, what I found is that when I focus on that, and it should be focused on sometimes, when I do focus on that, I become despondent. It brings me down. It saddens me. And those are human emotions, and they're good emotions to have. But then I have to remember that if I stay there too long, like some people that I know, they're sending me videos on WhatsApp all the time. They're sharing stuff on Instagram. Look at this, look at this. I can't look at this. I understand there's injustice in the world and horrific things are happening. But if I look at that, I lose hope. What I need to do is focus on my circle of influence, right? As Stephen Covey would put it.
Fight.
I have to say, what can I control? I can't control 99% of those things. What can I control? I can control the way that I interact with you, how I smile at your team, how I interact with people. This is what I can do, how I can use social media in a positive way. So when I start looking at all the things that I can do, then I become enthusiastic. Then I become, motivated and passionate, because I can see that, and this isn't, by accident. I mean, research shows that when we focus on what's ahead, we become optimistic. We become full of energy. When we focus on the past and where we are today, it brings us down. So whilst it's good, I have a very, very good friend, Professor Paul McGee, best-selling author, one of the most incredible people that I know. And he has in his book called Sumo, which means shut up and move on. It's a fantastic book. Bestseller. I think it's in its 20th anniversary edition, just came out. In there, he talks about hippo time, that it's good as humans to be able to wallow in self-pity at times. Yeah, it's good and it's healthy, but you can't stay there.
Yeah.
You have to accept, I'm going to be here a little while, but I am going to get out of it. And I think that's important as well.
Love it. Love that. Very nice.
Shall I move on to the next one?
Yeah, is this the last one?
I believe it is. Does social media reward authenticity or simply the appearance of it? Oh, the appearance of it. 100%.
Just rewards the
appearance of it.
It's so bullshit.
I could get millions of views right now. It'd be millions of views it would be so easy, especially for me, to get millions. All I'd have to do, I'd have to make a reel. Look, if I make a reel right now saying, don't use this, yeah. Don't put this out as a reel by itself, right? But listen, after giving it a lot of consideration, I think the time has come for me to create something that a lot of people have wanted for quite some time. I didn't want to do it, but I think the OnlyFans is the way to go, right?
Shawarma.
Right.
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans with shawarma, Tuesday's garlic night, whatever. Yeah. That's it. Millions of views, not difficult to do, right? I could do it and I'd probably be hugely successful. I'm successful, but I'd be way more successful than I am today. I'd be invited all over the place. Oh my God, the possibilities are endless. It's so easy to be inauthentic and to be rewarded for it. But that is an example of somebody that would have a lot of fun, I'm sure, but they won't be happy. And I would never, ever, ever, after having tasted true happiness, I told you when I buried my daughter, feeling at peace. I could never imagine burying my daughter and feeling peace and happiness in doing it. But I did that, not because I thought I want to think happy thoughts. No, I didn't want to think happy thoughts. It was one of the worst days of my life. I remember it vividly. But it was undeniable that I was accepting of the fact that this is not it's not in my hands. She passed away. This is God's will. And I'll be with her again one day. That feeling of peace and happiness, I wouldn't trade for anything. And that's why I would never sell out. That's why I don't do things in my content that aren't part of who I am. I'll never do those things. I don't work with brands that there's loads of stuff that I don't do. Because for me, authenticity is key. My children are grown up. They're looking at me. If I start acting differently, they're going to call me out on it. I'm the same person. Sitting here with you here, Lucas, my son's here now, I'm the same person no matter who I'm talking to. Obviously at home, you're going to be different because you're with your family. You're going to let your hair down a bit. But ultimately, what you see is what you get. I'm the same person, Doesn't matter who I'm with or what I'm doing.
The good news is I've got one more ball for you.
Okay.
There's nothing on it. It's a blank ball.
Oh.
The life that you've had so far, the ups, the downs, and everything sort of in between. You've had an incredible journey, man, really. And I know it's very cliche to say you've had an incredible journey, but you really have. You've lived 4 lifetimes in one so far, right. and you're still going, inshallah. So out of everything that you've been through, you've experienced firsthand, what is that one insight that you think you'd really like to share with everybody based on your life so far?
Okay.
What do people need to know?
Only one.
Your key message.
My key message, I think, would be find your purpose in life. If we were to get a bunch of children and put them in a playground without explaining to them that this is a school and you're here to learn, there's things for you to do, things for you to accomplish. We just left them in the playground. Those kids are just going to play all day long. They're going to accomplish nothing. They're going to deliver nothing. But if they understood, you're here for a purpose. You're here to do something. You're here to live a life that fulfills something on this planet, that leaves something behind for other people. Then those children all of a sudden are going to start behaving in a different way. Without knowing your purpose, people will always be lost. As long as you're lost, you're just going from pillar to post, not quite knowing what you're meant to be doing with your life. For me, the turning point was finding out and understanding the purpose of my life. And one thing that I'll say, I used to be a really big complainer. I was always had a really big victim mentality. I'd always blame other people for any of the problems that I had. But something that I developed later on in life was understanding that complaining is just like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And I always tell people, including my children, my wife, and she often reminds me of it as well, don't complain. Elevate your game. When things are tough, what can you do to make things better? Don't complain. Elevate your game. I think that would be it.
Beautiful. Love it. Mate, it's been great having you on the show.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
It's exactly what I thought it was going to be like. Granddad's brew.
Right? Yes.
But shipped or not shipped. We don't know who did it.
Yeah, definitely the wife. I'm telling you.
Definitely the wife. But look, I wish you nothing but the very best. You're smashing stereotypes.
I appreciate it.
From pretty much since you were a teenager, and then you continue to do so. And we need more people like you to set the example that everything can be done. Everything can be achieved. If you set your mind to it, and you have big enough heart to go and back it up, then you can have the life that you want and that you deserve.
I appreciate that.
So wish you all the very best, man.
I'd like to thank you as well, because when you come on somebody's show, you think to yourself, I hope they meet my expectations. But you didn't meet my expectations. You exceeded my expectations. I appreciate it. You've got a wonderful family. You're doing wonderful things. And you're the reason, together with your wife, of course, who got in touch with me, you're the reason that when I was approached to be on the podcast, I looked into what you're doing. I said, it's a no-brainer. I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy that we did it. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. We'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
On that note, guys, if you like, you can help me as well. Drop a like. Tell them to drop a like. Drop a comment.
Drop a like, subscribe, comment on this video, on anything that Lucas is doing. Don't worry about me. Just all about him. Yeah. He told me I've got to say that.
He nearly got my name right. So there's no S. It's Luca. But it's okay.
Authenticity.
We got there nearly.
Authenticity.
We nearly got there. But
it's like my grandmother calling Khadija Katishka.
And I'm going to call you Joel. Abdurahman, thank you again.
All right, thank you.
I'll see you guys all very soon on Luca Insight Track.
Lovely.
Bye.